Hello and welcome to this webinar, which will give you a guide to the appeals process for results derived from a teacher assessed grade in 2020-2021. My name is Jamie and I'm the Assessment Delivery Manager here at NCFE. During the course of this webinar, I hope to be able to provide context and scope of appeals as they relate to tags this year, an overview of the two-stage process and centre responsibilities, to touch upon the possible outcomes from appeals, as well as timescales and how to submit appeals. So as context for awarding this summer and how appeals fit into that, the starting point is that, as we know, due to the ongoing pandemic, many exams were cancelled beyond January and learners experienced disruption. So Ofqual introduced the option of teacher assessed grades or tags to mitigate the impact and allow learners to progress. At NCFE, we accepted tags at component level for all but one of our qualifications, meaning centres provided tags for individual components of assessments within a qualification, not a single tag for the qualification overall. Tags were based on evidence and as a reflection of learner performance, not as a projection of how a learner would have performed in a cancelled assessment had teaching and learning continued. There is no algorithm or other data-led moderation of any tags this summer. Instead, our external quality assurers are currently carrying out reviews where samples of learner evidence are reviewed against the tags submitted. Tag results for B1 qualifications, those which are most similar in format and character to GCSE or A-levels, are being released on the 10th and 12th of August. Tag results for B2 qualifications are being released on a rolling basis, linked to when the tag was submitted. And finally, the purpose of the appeals process this year is to give learners the opportunity to ask for a review of a tag result where they believe there may have been an error. Regarding the scope of appeals against results derived from a tag, the first thing to note is that our existing standard post-result services are not in force. There is no option for a review of marking or access to scripts, as there were no NCFE marked external assessments within the tag process, and our existing appeals process doesn't cover the circumstances required for tags. Therefore, we have a 2020-2021 specific tag appeals process in place exclusively for appeals against results derived from a tag. The details for this can be found on our website, which includes an overview, guidance document, infographic, plus details of how to submit. This process is very closely aligned to the JCQ-GQ appeals process this year and is applicable for all NCFE qualifications which can be awarded through a tag in 2020-2021. Before we go on to talk about the process and grounds for appeal, some key points worth highlighting are on screen now. Firstly, this is a learner-led process this year, as the primary relationship is between learners and centres. This is opposed to the previous years, where the relationship is more based on a centre-NCFE relationship. This means that while centres are responsible for the communication between themselves and NCFE, they will often find their actions are led by learner requests more than previously. As tags are submitted at component level, so must appeals. This is to maintain the direct relationship between the tag and the appeal against it. This means that if a learner receives their overall qualification outcome, they cannot appeal without identifying which tag component or components within that overall qualification outcome they believe contains an error. Appeals must be submitted against a received tag result. This means that where a centre has forgotten to submit a tag, or where a centre believes it is not appropriate to have submitted a tag, but the learner disagrees, these must be handled outside of the appeals process. Learner consent is essential for all appeals, and centres must ensure that before any appeal reviews are undertaken, they have a record of learner consent. As this is because, just as with similar reviews such as a review of marking, this year a tag can go up, can go down, or can stay the same following the outcome of an appeal. And obviously, where a tag component changes, there may also be a change to the overall qualification outcome as a result of this. The basic grounds for an appeal against a tag are that a learner believes that the centre failed to follow their procedures properly and consistently, or that the centre or NCFE made an administrative error, or that the centre made an unreasonable exercise of academic judgment. I'll now talk through each of those in turn, starting with a perceived failure of a centre to follow procedures properly or consistently. An example of this could be that a learner believes a centre failed to standardise marking of evidence used in tag judgments, or it could relate to other procedures that a centre committed to undertaking as part of their tag strategy, but subsequently may have failed to do so, which the learner believes may have impacted their tag. An administrative error is possibly the easiest to identify and resolve. It could be a transposition of grades between components for a learner, or possibly a keying or input error by the centre when submitting tags to NCFE. An unreasonable exercise of academic judgment is the grounds which are most specific to tag appeals this year. It can be broken down into one of two possible subcategories, either that of the selection of evidence used to make the tag judgment, or the judgment made from the evidence selected. The starting point of any appeal submitted on these grounds is not an alternative tag put forward by the learner, or that a different judgment could have been made from the evidence reviewed. Rather, the question is whether any other appropriate teacher could have reached the same judgment from the evidence, or whether the tag grade submitted was clearly and unequivocally indicative of a higher or lower grade. Evidence used may support more than one grade, so the question is not whether a different tag could reasonably have been submitted, but rather whether the tag judgment arrived at was an unreasonable exercise of academic judgment on behalf of the centre, which no other teacher acting reasonably could have made. Moving on to the two-stage process in place this year, all appeals must start with the learner requesting a centre review, and no learners should be contacting NCFE directly. Any learner contacting NCFE directly will be directed back towards their centre in the first instance. The centre review must consider the grounds put forward by the learner and carry out a procedural or administrative review. Any appeal submitted for review on the grounds of an unreasonable exercise of academic judgment must first be reviewed for procedural or administrative errors, but no further. No centres should review any academic judgment and instead proceed straight to stage 2 in these cases. Any centre reviewing a stage 1 centre review appeal must complete their internal review, and where no errors are found, must inform the learner. Or, where an error is uncovered and a tag may require an amendment, they must notify NCFE. This is the only time within the stage 1 review where a centre must notify NCFE, as there is no requirement to notify NCFE where learners initially request a stage 1 review, or for cases where a review is complete at stage 1, but no errors or amendments are required. The three options for outcomes following a centre review are shown here. And this leads into the second stage, which is the NCFE review. A learner can request an NCFE review if, following the conclusion of a stage 1 centre review, they are informed that there are no errors, but they believe that an error persists. Centres must act upon this instruction from a learner and submit a stage 2 appeal to NCFE for review where requested. There is no option for a centre to deny a learner this opportunity. NCFE will then review the appeal and any evidence submitted against the same grounds, including the grounds of an unreasonable exercise of academic judgment. Throughout the appeals process this year, it's essential that a centre has an internal appeals process which follows the requirements set out in our guidance document. It's also essential that a centre ensures all of their learners are aware of this process, understand the stages and options available to them, and understand how and when to submit an appeal to their centre. As part of this, centres must ensure that they securely retain evidence used in their tag judgments for a minimum of 6 months following results being issued, or from the final resolution of an appeal, and make this evidence available to NCFE as part of any appeal review. Following the outcome of an appeal, at either stage, a tag can go up, can go down, or can stay the same. Therefore, the overall qualification outcome can go up, can go down, or can stay the same. And equally, an appeal may be upheld and an error corrected, but no amendment required for a tag. NCFE will review the outcome of all centre reviews at stage 1 when notified of a potential change to a tag, and may request further detail and will either accept or reject the findings. At stage 2, an NCFE review may require a centre to revisit their tag judgment, or can result in NCFE amending a tag on behalf of a centre. The deadline for submitting the outcome of a stage 1 centre review or submitting a request for an NCFE stage 2 review for all B1 qualifications is the 17th of September. For B2 qualifications, which work on a rolling release basis, the deadline is 30 calendar days after the receipt of results. Notifications of the outcome of a stage 1 centre review, where a centre has uncovered an error and require a tag to be amended, or to submit to NCFE a request for a stage 2 NCFE review, can be done using our tag appeals form, which can be found on our website. Thank you for attending this webinar. If you have any further queries, please visit our COVID Hub on our website, where all guidance documents referenced in this presentation can be found. Or you can also contact our customer support team if required.